welcome to a brand new episode of The Jedi Way. I am one of your main hosts here on this particular show, the Outlaw John Rocha, but for these parts, I am known as Rocha Fett. Very excited to be diving into the spoiler review episode that we're doing here on episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Andor Season 2, and these two wonderful gentlemen are joining me here, and of course, one of our co-hosts originally on the pod here, and that is Kevin Smets, the Smasher himself, who is, of course, world-renowned for his KOTOR stuff. How are you, Kevin? How are things?
World-renowned, yes.
Yeah, world-renowned.
And John Rocha will be joining the fold. I got my VO files today. You nailed it, buddy. One take wonder.
Thank you.
And the TV spot that had been ready to release like a month ago is now going to release this Monday with brilliant vocals of Mr. John Rocha. It's a cool TV spot. And we have our June 14th release date set for Convergence. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, nice.
And good to see this guy right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Stepping in to take Laura Kelly's place this week because Laura is out traveling. We have it's still one of the hosts of Scoundrels Inc. Is that still going on? I know
who knows?
So up in the air, but anyway, you know him for the Schmodown. You know him as a guy who's been around in the space here for a bit and someone who's laid claim to areas here in the Star Wars universe. He is Frank Janisch. How are you, Frank? How are things, man?
I'm doing good, John, Kevin. Hello.
Look at that background, man. That's production quality there.
That's been up. He won't let it go. He won't.
Look at that. That background change, is that like automatic?
It just shows how jealous Kevin is of my effort.
Listen, I can have my background move to my voice, but I'm just gonna keep it as it.
Okay.
But how are things, man? How are you doing? How is Star Wars shooting? Have you been? What have you been working on, man? People might have not seen you for a bit. What's going on?
Yeah, I've since the Acolyte ended, I pretty much kind of went silent, if you will, and a lot of it was just honestly the discourse around Star Wars. I was just kind of fed up with it, and I went super dark on social media for the most part.
Wait, super dark meaning you got dark, or do you mean you just removed yourself from social
just
media?
Removed myself, basically. Okay. Yeah. I just removed myself from looking at the spiraling conversations and good takes, bad takes, everything in between, and I just decided I don't want to spend my time like that. Right. And so I kind of Star Wars kind of became a little more back to my roots, if you will, is how I consumed it growing up, and that's been a lot of fun. And then Andor coming up has really reignited my love for the franchise once again. Yeah, and I've been pleasantly surprised with season 2 thus far.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you, my friend. Having seen all the episodes, for me, I loved this season, and so rewatching them to get ready for reviews that we're doing here on the Jedi Way, but also on the Geek Buddies, it's been something really fantastic to see the reaction and like remember what it's like when majority of people enjoy Star Wars content. It's a lot of fun to discuss. There are still the people who are whining about the show, and I saw a really prominent Star Wars person say this week that I'm not going to talk about Andor anymore. So it happens, and that's life. But like
we're like notorious, but
yeah, fair point. It's nice to see a lot of people
back off that because I do have some things to say.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Because look, you're going to get that discourse anywhere, and I feel like Frank, you even said you kind of disappeared and you were following more sports for a while.
Oh, yeah, I just changed my focus to different passion.
But the same toxic negativity is everywhere.
It was there because I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and at that time there was a lot of discourse between Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. I'm not going to get into it, but it was like, oh my god, I can't get away from fan toxicity. It's it is everywhere. You're right, but it's about who you also surround yourself with. So there's the other part to it.
That's true. Yeah. And what I wanted to say, like launching off, because there were like our last episode, like I hadn't checked the comments, and then one day I was like, oh, let me just read the comments, and people calling for like Laura not to review the show anymore, saying that we were missing updates and that we were checking our text messages and not following along the story, like really. And I texted John and Laura on the side, pissed me off. Yeah. And the problem is, it's because this is now from a different side of fandom. There are armies on both sides. I know this because I got death threats twice. I got death I got death threats on my KOTOR channel. One of them said, "Oh, now that I know," when I was starting to do Skeleton Crew on camera.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, now I know what you look like, so I'll find you in real life." And that's because I liked Skeleton Crew, right? Especially and I was enjoying Skeleton Crew. So those are the anti-Disney fans that are really threatening me, saying, I'm going to inflict physical violence on you. And then, of course, when I didn't like The Acolyte, I had the same sort of message on one of my KOTOR channels.
Yeah.
One of my KOTOR videos, intimating the same, like, "Oh, you better watch your words in real life," because I didn't like The Acolyte. So there are idiots on both sides, and it's frustrating because with Andor, and I said it, the premiere didn't click for me, but I knew that it was going to keep getting better and better for me. And so, like, this week, I'll probably get attacked for being a shill and a Disney shill because I like these 3 episodes. Whereas the first 3 episodes, there was people in the comments saying, like, I only like things named KOTOR. And that, oh, by the way, that brave guy deleted his comment. But people saying, like, Laura, Kelly, and Kevin only like KOTOR. And only because we were just lukewarm on the premiere.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, Star Wars is for everyone. To quote fucking what's his name, Partagaz or whatever.
Yeah.
Calibrate your enthusiasm, okay? Because now the armies go after you on either side, and I think it's just annoying. The Force, Star Wars is for everyone, even Jar Jar fans. And, you know, shout out to some of the people that had good discourse. Jolly Rada was a really good example on the comments. Shout out to you for a conversation that we had regarding the sexual assault in the first 3 episodes. So, you know, and as far as that, the well-renowned Star Wars guy who doesn't want to watch Andor, that's allowed too. Like, he's getting a lot of flack on it for choosing not to. And it's like, that's just his choice. Everybody has choices. But don't act like, if you are a Star Wars shill, don't act like you're innocent and pure on that side, because you go after people that don't like Star Wars. And for the people that are anti everything Disney Star Wars, you go after the people that like Star Wars. And get this, if it's something we like or don't like, and it's something that you love, no one's wrong there. That doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make me wrong. We're both following our passions. And the same thing, if you love something that I don't like, that doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make me right. It doesn't make anyone. It's just fandom. And I know I'm just speaking to the choir here, and it's just going to go out there to the space, and no one will listen to it anyway, and no one cares what a Kings fan. Go Kings, go tonight. Hopefully they tie the series. They say is, but just discourse, you know. And I'm not, listen, I know Rocha always says that I'm going to delete the comments, but if anybody says clown comments, I'm going to respond now, because, like, I got to defend my squad. Like, you know what I mean? I just don't think that some of the vitriol and hate we got, and I'm sure John protects us and deleted a lot of the worst ones, because we didn't like something that you liked. Like, that's stupid.
I don't disagree with you, and we're not going to go and belabor the point. I think you said everything you needed to say on that, and I agree with it. I always stress that it needs to be civil down there, because as an example of what Frank said, when things get out of control, things get just too much. People have to pull away from it all, because it is too much. And so you do see a lot of anger, but you see a lot of anger and frustration in every fandom nowadays. No one is clean. I mean, look at the Superman stuff that's going on right now. And so nothing gets clean. And so just, unfortunately, it's one of the things. But yes, as I'll stress it again, I'm all for healthy discourse. I'm all for passionate back and forth. But when you get to where you're insulting someone's character, threatening someone's life, or putting it all on, you're veering into Sith territory, you're veering into Empire territory, and that's what the show is all about. So it doesn't mean
I'd like to finish by saying, release the Snyder Cut.
Okay, there you go. Well, we're here to talk about Star Wars, not the Snyder Cut. This is episodes of 4, 5, and 6 of season 2 of Andor. Episode 4, Ever Been to Ghorman? Episode 5, I Have Friends Everywhere. And episode 6, What a Festive Evening. All 3 directed by Ariel Kleiman. The way we're going to break it all down here in this is the review is that I'm going to ask Kevin and Frank what they thought overall about these episodes, and then we're going to break it down by storylines with Ghorman and with Ghorman rather, and what's going on with Bix and Cassian, with Vel and Cinta, and everything that went down with Dedra and Cyril. Kevin, your thoughts overall on episodes 4, 5, and 6 here of Andor season 2?
I mean, there's a checklist. There's got to be a checklist of every of these episodes, especially Luthen always gets such a banger of a line. Yeah. Like last week, it was, oh, how nice for you or whatever. And this week, it was, oh my gosh, it says the fire will burn or they will burn. It will burn very brightly, like such powerful. And then you get an awesome speech by Saw Gerrera. I thought that the one thing that I did correctly this time, I am treating it like a movie, like a 2.5 hour movie. So I got to watch all 3 at once, which was a blessing for me. Because last week I had watched it in piecemeal or whatever. And I think when you watch it all together, it just feels like a movie. Like, and for me, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the acting. And I really enjoyed the slowly building tension, like, and the story and the unveiling of the tensions in the story is a lot like the Rido, right? Is that the name of the gasoline, right? The fuel, the Rididium. It's like slowly starting, and you can just tell as it gets further and further into the 3-episode arc. And I came into it thinking like, oh, this is going to be where we see the Ghorman massacre, but no, like that's going to be next week probably. So
yes,
I enjoyed. It's tough because there's so much that went on, right? But first of all, I love Ghorman. It makes me want to travel. Obviously, you totally get that vibe of like World War II Paris, probably like Nazi occupied Paris or France. Sorry, Nazi occupied France.
Yes,
the vibes that I got, and like just the cafes and stuff like that, and seeing like Bix and at home, kind of going crazy away from it, while Andor's out there. Posing as what was his name? Varian Sky, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like a fashion dealer. That was cool. There were so many things, and it like Kleya is like my favorite now. Like he's the best. Yes, dude. Like she's just she. I'll tell my wife she's on the list. You know how we have lists. She's on the list of the.
Wow. Okay.
No. But I thought that she was such a badass. Like during that whole festive party thing. I have my thoughts on Benjamin Bratt later. But overall, I thought that. What's interesting too is because I watched all 3 in a row. At some certain point, my daughter came in, and like I will say, some people might not have liked it because the first episode of the 3 is slow. But it was good for me because Kira sometimes just likes to watch Star Wars with me, but she gets scared at all the scary parts. She covers her ears and like hides, right? So like there's no scary parts in that first episode. It was a lot of the building, the setting the tone for the next 2. And so I would see that maybe someone might think that the first episode was slow, but I liked it because it allowed me to watch with Kira before it got too scary and dicey, before I had to kick her out. But so overall, I like these episodes a lot more than the premiere. The cutting back and forth to me didn't pop out as much as it did the first time. And people were misconstruing me. The constant cuts to Mon Mothma dying or dancing at the end of last episode, I understand what they were trying to do there. Mine was more about how we were just having a bit of the scene with Krennic in their meeting, and then we were cutting randomly to Andor, and then we were cutting randomly to Mon Mothma at the thing. I didn't like at the wedding and stuff. I was kind of over that. But the cutting it just felt all not deliberate or like apparent to me. It was like, oh, now we're here. It felt like everything naturally had a progression, and I think the pacing and everything was much improved. So it's funny, it's the same director. So overall, I enjoyed it much more, and I have a feeling, and I know you say your favorite Star Wars episode. I don't think it was these 3 yet.
No.
But I can't imagine. I mean, the speech by Saw Gerrera gave me goosebumps. Later on, I have a little game for you too. But yeah, so love it.
Frank, Janisch, your thoughts overall on these episodes here of Andor season 2, 4, 5, and 6? How did you think it all went?
It was tense throughout for the entire 3 episodes for me, and this show is just on a completely different level than anything Star Wars has produced, movies, TV, anything really in terms of execution, writing, directing, cinematography. I mean, it really has the whole package and what I'm looking for when I consume media, let alone Star Wars. And even from the first shot of this 4th episode, where it's out of focus, it's keen on the panel that's doing all the mind stuff. Bix is having that PTSD. Just from like just breaking into the episode like that, that alone sets a tone in terms of, the elevated level of skill put into these episodes. And it started since season 1. It's carried over into season 2 in I think a much better fashion, in my estimation. the 3 episodes, like I said, were so tense throughout. I care about all of these characters, and the one thing that this arc really made me care about was the relationship between Cassian and Bix. And while I applaud them for the job that they have done in telling their story, I also hate them at the same time, because there's going to come a time where it's going to hurt very bad what I'm thinking is going to happen at some point in this series. So
hey, maybe he's just a cheating bastard and he's making out with
that's even worse.
He's making out with Jyn Erso, dude. Just
so I just really, I was engrossed the entire time. I love seeing the Ghorman culture and that the parallels that have been happening, Imperials, Nazi, we pretty much have the Ghorman front is like the French Resistance. And I was a huge World War II buff once upon a time. And so seeing all of these elements, even going back to the last arc when the Imperials are having that meeting, you see how organized and disciplined they are, and you go back to the jungle and it's all chaos, and it's just like the juxtaposition. I was like, man, this is such good storytelling, and sometimes it's a little oversaturated, but at the same time, it's probably sometimes what you need. But this season has been really pinpoint in terms of what they want to focus on and delivering you a message, and it hits hard for a lot of the time. And this arc, it's really about, kind of like the sacrifice, the toll it takes on these people who are trying to start a revolution and all the hardships that come with that and sacrifices. I just thought I was so engrossed from start to finish.
Yeah, these are the 3 longest episodes of the season, all in one, section here. And it's because there was a lot to tell. It was very dense in terms of the storytelling that was going on, not dense in a negative way. And Frank, you're absolutely right, making these World War II references. For those who've studied history, you cannot ignore the French resistance to the Nazi occupation that happened. Certainly there's a lot of remnants in that. I love how they explored that with these different actors, these actors they brought on to play the members of the resistance, and even within the resistance, just as we saw in Yavin 4 in the last 3 episodes, they are fighting amongst themselves about what to do in this situation. And what's really great about these 3 episodes too is it's an honest interpretation and portrayal of what a rebellion would be like in its early stages, putting it together, fixing it. And you have someone like Luthen, who is like, as you said, Kevin, well, if it doesn't work out on Ghorman, the fire that comes out of that planet, the burning from that planet will be bright enough for everyone to see. So Luthen, although I'm not always the biggest fan of how Luthen does stuff, because he's quite willing to sacrifice everybody but himself, you still need somebody who is willing to see the bigger picture and not get caught up in the loss of lives and not get caught up. Remember, General Grant sacrificed a lot of men to win that Civil War, and that's just kind of how he had to do it in his approach there. And so you need somebody who is in charge, who understands it's not about, oh, you're going to kill my brother, you're going to kill my sister. It's like, we have to win the war to stop these people from coming. And we do have that scene where even Cassian risks being found out by confronting Luthen at his shop about him talking to Bix behind his back. And Luthen's like, you can't function worrying about her. And even Bix says to Cassian, I am not your sister, I am not your mother, or Mora. I am a person who can still fight. I'm a person who can still do what I need to do. You can't be caught up in worrying about me and fighting a rebellion. It doesn't work. And so I like that you see that here. And then, of course, what you see with Dedra and Cyril, the nefarious stuff that's going on Dedra's side, not telling Cyril what he's really there doing for her and Partagaz and for the Empire. And that is going to be interesting how it plays out, because it seems pretty clear that Cyril is caught up with the Empire doing everything by the book, and Dedra is quite fine with the Empire fudging the lines and all of that. And throw in the mix, as you said, Kevin, saw Gerrera, who was like, breathe in the fumes, boy, bring in the fumes, all of that. To show that you must have all these different kinds of people involved in the rebellion whose goal is to destroy the Empire in order to succeed. And so I kind of love that. And Mon Mothma, who is trying to lobby all these people to be on her side, but they're all caught up in, well, we don't want to piss off the tantrum-throwing Emperor or the Empire, so we're just going to stay the course and hope it works out for the best. And I love how they do that. And there's a lot of topical stuff here that feels ripped from the headlines of our own newspapers currently, which is also an unsettling part of this season for sure. All right, but let's get into the specific story. Let's talk about Cassian here and his role over these 3 episodes with Bix. We clearly see their relationship is because we're jumping to 1 year later, three years before the Battle of Yavin, and we see that their relationship has progressed. They're in that safe house, and eventually Cassian gets sent, as you said, Frank, to be part of this, to be this designer there to Ghorman to figure out what's going on and to assess their capabilities to pull off a rebellion. And Cassian comes back from all of this and says, no, they're not prepared. Meanwhile, Bix is taking those sleep drops because she is having those visions, as you said, of people like the doctor who was putting her through all the things that she's going through. And eventually Cassian comes back, says they're not prepared to do this war. Luthen doesn't want to believe him, and he sends Vel and Cinta to essentially do his dirty work there. And we know what happens. We'll get to that in a little bit. But by the end of these 3 episodes, in order to deal with Bix's pain and recurring PTSD about this memory, they go and find the doctor, they torture him, and eventually blow his ass up as they both walk away in a badass final scene. So Kevin, I go back to you first.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on how Cassian and Andor progressed through these 3 episodes and how his relationship with Bix progressed. Did you like where we ended up by the end of episode 6?
Well, I think it's interesting too that like he had to admit that like he didn't shoot the that trooper because it's because he saw her face. He's protecting her and not protecting just the cause. And I think that was an interesting truth that he kind of had to face himself. I thought overall, it was fun. Like, I think that it was interesting to see Coruscant. Like, we always see the upper levels, and now you're just seeing like, oh, if you're grinding away at like your job at Dex's Diner, you probably live at like that kind of apartment level. And so I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I really appreciate when they bring things from Legends and make it canon and without contradicting it. So in Legends, Tarkin landing his ship on a bunch of people was actually the Ghorman massacre back in Legends before it was ever mentioned in Rebels. And then Rebels had kind of retconned that. And so for them to be able to integrate both, and when they say Tony Gilroy said he's not a Star Wars fan, it's like, he said he's like not a fan's fan. Like, he's still a fan, but he's not like going to overly do it. But when he does something like this, where he takes the Legends and doesn't contradict it, but instead says, okay, that's the Tarkin massacre now. Right. And so the Ghorman massacre is going to be what we eventually see. I thought that was a cool way of repurposing the Tarkin massacre to make both Legends canon and what's canon, which gives me hope for a Plagueis canon / I got to always have my obligatory.
Everybody drink.
Yes. Everybody drink. Yeah, that would definitely be on it. But yeah, I thought that the setup, and I thought that their relationship, I saw someone on Twitter saying they were doing the hand gestures and it was like the rebel insignia. I don't know. Interesting. I think people were looking too into that, but I thought she was doing death sticks, to be honest. Like, I was like, oh man, she's just popping these death sticks to go to sleep. But yeah, overall, I thought that it was kind of what you're talking about, Frank, with the disorder of those rebels on Yavin 4, the last arc, I guess you could say, the last series of episodes, where he was like, you better get water, it's not going to rain forever. He was going to this planet to assess it too, and he just thought that he was like, oh, what, you're going to steal all this cargo from this train? You're going to tell everybody anyway, because everybody will obviously know it's you, and it's like getting away, but you guys don't want to get away, you want to stay there. Like, he's calling it, and he knows what's going to happen before it happens. And I think that's going to be very interesting when he finds out that other people that he's working with are aware of this and how he's going to react to that. So I thought it was great. What about you, Frank? What did you think of their that whole arc as far as he goes? And I especially loved when he also met with Rylance's daughter, and
in the cafe.
In the cafe, and he kind of went off at her. That was dope. Like, again, he's showing like he knows what he's doing. He's now well adversed into this mess and in this thing of being a rebel. And he thought they were all doing it. They weren't off to a good start. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Before we go to Frank, I want to hear your thoughts on the fight. Did you like that Bix got her revenge in that way? That's a very important moment. So can you give your thoughts on that, Kevin? Did you think it was?
He opened the whole arc with her dreaming of it, right? Yeah. So she's dreaming of those handhelds and knobs. So Gorst meeting his end, I thought at the end was good. I think he kind of gets off the hook though. I mean, he was probably only listening to those horrible sounds for about 10 minutes before, as you say, blew his ass up. But I thought that was appropriate. And I think that I think that it's cool that Cassian kind of helped her out because, sometimes revenge is not always the best thing, obviously, and it fuels people for negative reasons. But I think Bix needed to do that to move on. And I think for the next year, for our next episode, 3 episodes, she needed to get her head of the game. Because even Luthen, I felt like he hinted to Cassian, like, hey, you better get her head right. Otherwise, like, what? Is she expendable? Like, they would have to kill her because they know what everyone looks like too. Like, that's where Luthen like scares me, when you're just not quite sure. Like, would he cut him off? Like, if he thought that she was
like Kate Toma in the last arc, he's like, if you're a problem,
no one matters to him but the win. Like, everyone is expendable, and I think even Kleya, if the situation called for it, would be expendable.
No,
to him as well.
I think he would. And then she would too. And she would too.
Right.
He
Good
burns
point.
his decency for someone else's future, as he said last season. So
possibly. Frank, what are your thoughts then on the storylines here with Cassian and with Bix, and then where we end up with Bix and Cassian doing the revenge here on Dr. Course?
With Cassian, I love seeing him as a spy, let alone a fashion designer, where he gets to be a little more over the top from his normal personality in the show, and then also him just dropping knowledge in terms of like, you talk to me and now everyone is in danger. Like, he's very hard in the way that Luthen would be hard. You can see, I think Cassian takes a lot of the methods that Luthen has developed and employed, but where they differ, I think, is the philosophy and how to go about it, because Cassian is so close to Bix and was close to Brett, all these people in his community back in Ferrix, and Luthen is somewhat isolated by design. He only has Kleya, so he doesn't have really all these attachments to Vel or Cinta, or even Cassian and Bix. Although in a weird way, I think at a point he does show concern and care for Bix when he goes to the apartment. But I think it was also kind of that, and also of like, is this something I'm gonna have to take care of in the future? So it was like both, but also there's that itch of like, if I got to take care of the situation, then I'll do what I got to do. Whereas Cassian is like, this is non-negotiable. We don't leave anyone behind, basically, is kind of like his philosophy. I'm gonna inspire you or bring you with me. I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. And so I think eventually Luthen and Cassian might come at odds with their philosophies and their approach. But in terms of Bix and Gorst, I was so unsure of those final moments to start off, because I didn't know if she was again having PTSD flashbacks and if this was all in her mind. And so I was like, is this really happening? It seemed like it was, but also didn't, because it was out of focus and in focus with her. And then she's like walking, she does everything to him. Like, damn, that's exactly what you would want to do in a dream if you could do it in real life. Right. And then she's walking out, shoots the security guard. I'm like, oh man, maybe she's like super doped up right now, and she's just like completely gone rogue, and this could be bad. But then you see Cassian right by her side, and I was like, oh, this has got to be like something that Luthen kind of sanctioned, in terms of, when Cassian's like, if you want my blood, you got to help me figure this out. And so Luthen really appreciates, I think, and knows he needs Cassian. And so I think he helps, like, probably gave him this information. He's going to be here at this time. Do what you got to do. And so that went and happened. And I thought it was great for Bix's arc, in terms of the trauma that the Empire has put her through.
Yeah.
And it's also a way of like, is this a healthy way to get closure on something like this? I don't know.
Right.
A lot of people would say no, but I don't know. This is a revolution, a rebellion, and you're at war. You do what you got to do. But again, there is this gray area that Andor seems to always toe of like, would you do it this way? Or would you, So that's another reason I really love the show too.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of you guys. I mean, I loved what they did with Cassian here. I mean, look, again, what we stressed in the last 3 episodes, we did our review last week, is that Cassian has grown up, and it's been a year from that guy who we saw at the end of Rogue One, who was like, just use me, I want to be a part of this thing, who was so caught up in his own emotions, trying to run away from the rebellion. This guy is now fully invested. He's got skills. He knows how to sweet talk people, manipulate situations. Now we see him having the guts and the strength to go at Luthen. I think he's one of the rare people that can try to put Luthen in his place or call him out. And we see him at the beginning. He is like taking care of Bix, and certainly they have their relationship. She's like, we got to do something about the windows. We got to get plates. She's trying to normalize her space because it's all so out there with her PTSD and her memories of all of that. And God knows what that torture device did to her mind beyond the PTSD. But when she's trying to normalize, Cassian is constantly on edge, right? He's like, yeah, we'll fix that at some point. We're going to get fruit. No, we're done. We're good. Give us our food and let's get out of here. So Cassian is constantly on edge. Bix is trying to find some normalcy, some sort of calmness amidst the madness. But Cassian is constantly in a place where he is slowly but surely becoming another Luthen, where it is about what he has to do, what he has to accomplish here. And certainly as we see through him being the costume designer, having that conversation in the cafe, and having the conversation with the Ghormans there. And then later when he's talking to Luthen saying, they're not ready. They're not prepared. They're way too late. It's not going to work. You should stop right now. And Luthen not caring at all, which really offends Cassian. He's mad. I don't think Cassian would have gone back at him 6 months ago, but or a year ago, this Cassian, who's had 2 years now in service of Luthen, is in a different place about the whole situation. And so he's like, this is not the right time. Don't do this, because he's not fully Luthen yet and caught up in the fact that bodies don't matter, deaths don't matter, lives don't matter. Beating the rebellion or beating the Empire, that's what matters. And that's why he's still protecting Bix and he's still taking care of her. I know some people have seen Bix's storyline a little bit like cliched or hackneyed, that, oh, here's a damsel in distress. Here's a woman who's caught up in taking sleeping drops to deal with the PTSD. But like, that stuff was torturous. And so you have to honor that. Leading up to her blowing up Gorst and making him, I thought that was amazing. But as you said, Frank, it brings up questions, which I think is also great for the viewer. Do you agree with this? Do you think this is the right way? If you know mental health, this may be not the best way to deal with this, but we're in a war. So we don't have to hold hands and kumbaya and find the right way to respond. You have to deal with what you've got here. And I think that's where we end up by the end. But we certainly have a Cassian who is much more taking control of situations. And we have a Bix that now that he has possibly freed from her pain by taking revenge on this man together. So it's very interesting.
And you know what?
Yeah.
Luthen said something too to Cassian. He's like, I'm thinking like a soldier. And he goes, I need you to think like a leader.
Like a leader. Yes.
And to me, that shows the importance that Luthen puts on Cassian, because once Luthen's probably like, once I'm gone, I need to know that it's someone can lead these people, lead this rebellion. And I think he's putting a lot of faith into Cassian to do that. So, and I think that's also probably why he's super hard on him.
That's probably true, right?
How about at the bar where Caro Rylance tells Cassian, like, you're not a what does he say? You're not the revolutionary, which he's like, you don't have it in you, or he says basically he's calling him out like you're not a revolutionary, and it's like, no, he doesn't understand that, like, for Cassian, like, you could do all that shit. Like, people are going to have to die. Like, the revolutions aren't pretty. It's not like some guy on the top of a hill with a flag, like, come follow me, everybody. Like, it's ugly. People have to sacrifice and die. And that's what's going to happen. And that just shows how narrow-minded Caro was, and his daughter, Enza was his daughter's name.
Right. Yeah.
So Cassian was hearing a lot of this, like, oh, you're not a revolutionary, and like then hearing from Luthen, like, you need to speak like a leader. Like, it's just interesting how you're seeing all these formative, how you're seeing him form into what he's going to end up being in Rogue One.
Yeah, agreed. And it's all built from all of the things that he's experiencing. That's a great point, Kevin. Let's swing back to you, Frank. What do you think about the Dedra and Cyril situation? These two. And we're going to connect Ghorman to this, because this is where we see that Cyril has taken a job here on Ghorman, much to his mother's chagrin, who thinks that he's being sidelined and he's being demoted and all of this stuff because of what happened on Ferrix. And Dedra as well. It's being understood amongst the Empire that she is essentially being punished for being in charge of Ghorman. But this is all a plot here with Partagaz to find out what's going on with the rebels there on Ghorman. Meanwhile, we see that the the news channel network is promoting all of these ideas
TV
about
from Hunger Games.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The Empire News Network is promoting this kind of narratives about Ghorman and that they're this haven for rebels and that they're against the Empire and trying to mess people up and they're harboring terrorists. And we see that Cyril has been sent there to essentially become friends with the people in the rebellion so he can have more access to information, report back to Dedra, and Dedra report to Partagas when the information is good enough for her to report to Partagas. And we see all of that play out throughout these 3 episodes. But we also get a window into the resistance there on Ghorman, and we see these 2 different sides battling about how to do things. The more aggressive worker, blue-collar guy who comes in after the older gentleman speaks, we see him with the mustache. He's the one that's more about it and more of this and all of this. So we see that even within Ghorman, there's a battle of how to carry out the rebellion, and this all leads to what may be the beginning of a bit of a fracture between Dedra and Cyril, in that Cyril is okay with the Empire doing things as long as they're following the rules. He doesn't mind being a spy. But with Dedra has no problem, as I said earlier, blurring the lines, because it could mean promotion, it could mean advancement for them. So that's what she's caught up in. What do you think about what we saw from them and the Ghorman Resistance here over these 3 episodes?
This is such a fascinating storyline in this show. I never could have imagined watching in season 2 with Cyril and Dedra.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, after knowing what we know now about Cyril and the whole operation, when it opens with him talking to Edie on the phone or whatever, and I think about how much more tolerant he was of that conversations prior, to those previous, because he knows something that she doesn't know. He has that power of, like, well, mother, I'm actually here because I'm an Imperial spy helping spy on the Ghorman front. It's not a demotion as you say it is, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, you just say whatever you need to say because I'm using you to communicate to the Ghorman front that I know is listening. And so he's like using his mom in that sense. And, kind of having a little bit of a pleasure in it, knowing that, he's finally, ahead of where maybe his mom wants him to be in life. Anyways.
Right.
But, and then also the relationship, going back to the apartment, she's like, turn out the lights. And I was like, oh, okay.
Rocha,
and then they kind of like
turn out the lights.
There's like a little bit of
had sex.
I was like, I feel like Cyril's trying to flirt with Dedra a little bit when he's like, you had me followed. And then she's like, turn out the lights. I was like, God, these people, barely can kiss on the cheek, but all of a sudden we're turning out the lights 3 minutes later.
Wait till you see the deleted scenes, buddy.
You only have an hour. But with Cyril, this was such a ride through these 3 episodes because is Cyril acquiescing to like the plight of the Ghormans? Is he gonna flip? But oh no, he's still actually a dumbass, and he's like feeding information to the Ghormans because he's trying to get on the Imperial good side, and then he gets the praise from Partagas, and the dude is sprung in his pants because he's just heard the greatest thing in his life. He is such a fanboy of the Empire. He's so blind to everything else around him, of the injustice really that's around him, and continuing on this what is, I guess, perceived as glory for himself in terms of making it higher in the ranks. And Dedra obviously has her own priorities. It's gonna be interesting to see Cyril and Dedra if it gets revealed to each other, what's really going on. How he takes that, and then what does that mean down the line for him? It's such a fascinating storyline. I really love the back and forth with the Underground Resistance and Ghorman and Cyril, and then the heist that they let happen. I was like,
we'll
man,
talk about that in a second.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, just I think it's probably my favorite storyline of this arc, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of couples in these 3 episodes, right? You've got Bix and Cassian. You've got Kevin. You've got Dedra and Cyril. You've got
Cinta and Vel.
Cinta and Val. You've even got Saw Gerrera and Wilmon, which we'll get to. That's the kind of couple that we'll see as well. And even Mothma and what she has going on there, and then Kleya and Luthen, of course. But yeah, your thoughts, Kevin, on this, on Dedra and Cyril, and where it leads to by the end, and what Frank alluded to, like what's going to happen once Cyril finds out that Dedra has been lying to him, because didn't she just defend him against her mother? And so if he's being used by her after she stood up for him against her mother, is that going to mess up his mind? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I fixed my mirroring mode on this darn.
Oh, there you go.
So when I say pings now, it's not
important. There you go.
I would say this: when Cyril first appeared in last season, I was pissed because in our KOTOR 3 series, Shadow of the Sith, we have a character named Cyril Cyril, very similar. So I was like, oh, great. Like it's too late. We can't renew it because we already released some of it. But I was like, why is this character here? Right. But everything matters. Everything is like connected, I think. And that's the storytelling that Tony Gilroy has. So my theory now is that not only is Kino Loy Snoke, which we already know of course, we already know that Kino Loy is Snoke, right? Roka, we find that out. Is that the best episode ever?
In no way do I think Kino Loy is Smoke.
Blink twice. You saw the whole season. Blink twice.
Yeah, that's right.
Not blinking, so that means it's okay. I think Cyril is going to be the one. They got to know about the Death Star by the time we get to the Ring of Kafrene in the opening of Rogue One. That's why they're sending for the pilot. That's why they're going through Galen Erso. I think that Cyril is going to see the devastation of the Ghorman massacre. I think he's going to realize Dedra was playing him. Dude, Partagas is playing him too. Partagas earlier said, calibrate your enthusiasm. And now he's telling him, like, great job. The best day of my life. He's being played like a little puppet. I think Cyril, when he finds that out, is going to be the one, and probably it'll cost him his life. He's going to be the one to leak that there's a Death Star being in production, and that's going to happen. That is my prediction. That's why Cyril is there from the very get-go, from the beginning. He was obsessed with Cassian in the first season, and now he's obsessed with being a good, Imperial spy. And when he realizes that what he loves is not doing it by the book, like what you say, I think that's going to devastate him. And I think he's going to also, you do see, like, he's still like, they're eating out of my hand or whatever. And he's getting the spiders and stuff like that. But I still think he feels their plight. You know what I mean? I think he feels the pain of those revolutionaries, or whatever you want to call them, the fighters. So I think when they all get wiped out, however that's going to be, and he's going to see it with his own eyes, I think that's going to really like open his eyes. And I think he will be the one to turn and reveal that there's a Death Star in that. I don't know how, but I think that's going to be, that info will be given to Cassian from Cyril.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, Roka's already seen it, so I'm trying to see his like.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to give you anything.
Yeah,
but I like the idea of it, because like we know that in every Star Wars show, somebody from the Empire turns. It almost always happens, right? Any Star Wars film, now we already have Young over there, Youngin, whatever his name is, the guy who has been feeding Luthen information.
Oh, Lonnie,
Lonnie, right?
Yeah,
Since season 1. And there's another scene with them again on the elevator in this stuff as well, which I think is hilarious. But yes, there is possibilities here of how is Cyril going to react when he finds out what's really been going on, and is he finding a connect? Is he like going undercover, but then also finding a connection with these rebels and developing a connection with these rebels, which happens sometimes when people go undercover. So who knows? We will see.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this storyline, though, Kevin. Going back to you, what do you think about how this all went down with Mon Mothma here? She's working the angles, working the politicians. We see her trying to get them to vote against this act, and none of them seem to want to do it. It's, as we said, it's very, or as I said, so you can blame me, very topical to what we see going on in our world now. Like, hey, people need to stand up here. People need to protest this stuff. People need to stop voting for these laws or these acts or these executive orders, and people need to stop this stuff. And no one seems to want to do it. Even the narratives around Ghorman are working. We hear that senator going, well, attaching anything to Ghorman right now is not a really good idea. Even the representative Ghorman is saying, even though she stood up for him and she got him in there and got him set up, even he is saying, well, I'm telling my people to relax and not rebel and not do anything. It wouldn't look good if I aligned with you in this situation. So nobody seems to want to stand up. And Mon Mothma is the only one who's out here trying to do something. And that leads us to this scene in the gallery where Kleya is trying to remove that listening device while Luthen and Mon Mothma are talking to Krennic throughout this whole sequence. And even Mon Mothma is going back and forth with Krennic about what they're teaching in the schools, which, of course, today we heard someone wants to tell you what they're going to teach you in schools here in this country now. So, like, what were your thoughts as you were watching this storyline? How do you think this all played out with Kleya and Luthen and with Mon Mothma versus Krennic?
I loved Mothma versus Krennic. I love when he turned. I didn't expect to see him at that party. So when he turned around, and I'm like, okay, because like they never cross paths in Rogue One, right? But they're like on both opposite sides. So like to see these two behemoths, and I mean, I just love Ben Mendelsohn as Krennic, and just they're back and forth. And I love the quote Mon Mothma says when she's like, "Oh, nice to see him free of the witness stand." Like you knew back, he was probably always getting called up for war crimes. That no one was probably happier about the Empire than Krennic when he doesn't have to go to these war crime meetings anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I like that overall. The aesthetic, I like that there was a lot of aliens. A lot of people saying not enough aliens in Andor, and I like that there's a lot of sequel. I'm probably going to get shit on for this, whatever. I like that there's a lot of Disney era sequel trilogy connections to this, because if you watch it like my Super Watch all in order, you're going to get to Rogue One, then you're going to get the original trilogy, right? So it's cool that they're seeding some of these things like Dakar, which we'll later talk about, but all the aliens, you know, there's a lot of the classic aliens, but a lot of the aliens are the aliens from the Disney era. Like that alien, I forget the name of the alien senator, but I have the name of the alien species itself that gets blown up on Hosnian Prime. Like you see him there
with the Chancellor,
and that is the he is a Tarsunt is the name of that species. But so I like the aesthetic. I think I think it was interesting to see the Senate. I remember we were so excited in season 1 when the trailer came out and we knew we were going to see the Imperial Senate. The Imperial Senate, like what Leia always talked about, would not sit still for this. So that was cool. You've seen the Oathkeeper. I know there was talk about we used to, on Scoundrels Inc., we used to always bet, like, are we going to see Palpatine? And I always was like, he's going to be in the next episode. He's going to be in the next episode. I know he's not now. I know that Gilroy, unless they're hiding it, I know that he's probably not going to make an appearance. They probably could have done it instead of the Oathkeeper, but that Oathkeeper sequence was cool. It was like shades of his speech from episode 3, which is out in theaters now, so it's kind of appropriate. Oh, yeah. And you see Mon Mothma's hand like grip the side of the Senate thing, like just not refusing to say the Pledge of Allegiance, right? The Pledge of the allegiance to the Empire. So I thought that was good. And of course, the Krennic versus Mon, and also the Tinian. I love the idea of a Tinian Codex. I love any new lore that's just really cool, and like something where like blind people, it's based on touch, and the story is told as you're going around. And her trying to get that listening device out, Kleya, as they're talking. And they probably would have been caught if Krennic and Mon Mothma did not realize it at the time. But her being defiant and not bending over to this Imperial by like having her own voice and saying, no, history, history is written by the winners, not the losers. That's what Krennic was saying, obviously. And her saying, well, yeah, because it's interesting because I see it more as like a massacre and everything like that. I just thought that was a very interesting dynamic to see the two of them square off. And I would be remiss without mentioning Benjamin Bratt. Now, I texted Rocha and Laura, if Benjamin Bratt, he did a great job of the spirit of Bail Organa. I get it. If he's later in the series and he factors in, which I'm guessing he is, then that's fine. Because if it was only for that cameo, then there's like no reason to just have recast. Like they'd just be like, okay, let's throw someone else in there. It's fine, But I know that Jimmy Smets is up there in age. Maybe whether it was his health or whether
they said it was scheduling. They came out and said it was
scheduling and financial. And so,
then, that's a bummer. Because it's just, for me, I always like to watch things in order. It's, you go from him in Obi-Wan or episode 3, then Obi-Wan, and then him to Benjamin Bratt, and then him back to, Rogue One right away. But, headcanon is fine. There's I thought he did a good job of the spirit of him. So I'm not going to actually shit on the recasting. I'm glad they didn't try to do it CGI. Like that would have poked out even more. So what did you think, Frank, of this whole section? Obviously, you can open with your thoughts on Benjamin Bratt and then go into the festive night. What a festive night.
Sure. Yeah. I
segue right there, by the way. What do you think? Good.
Nice. Very good.
I really don't get up in arms too much over a recasting as long as it makes sense. And this one, look, if it's financial and scheduling and all that, and the strikes and all that kind of jumbled everything up, and all of that stuff. So like, it's unfortunate because definitely would have loved to see Jimmy Smets back as Bail, especially after being in Kenobi and not being in this one. It's like, it is a head scratcher short, but when you hear the explanation, it happens. And then to get to Brett, though,
on Ozempic, so he was thinner for that. He's on face Ozempic.
It doesn't also like shrink you in stature, but maybe it does. Anyways, so
side effect.
Yeah, I thought he portrayed Bail as I've come to know, like his spirit through Jimmy Smets, and I was like, this works for me. I think there was like one little thing he had said during his line read, and then I was like, oh yeah, that does definitely, at least it felt to me like Bail Organa, and I was like, all right, this is cool. And I also like Benjamin Bratt, so I'm not gonna. What am I gonna say? So that was great. This whole storyline though, with getting the listening device out of that gallery, I'm watching Kleya go, take out this listening device. I have no idea how this thing works, where it plugs into, how all that. But I am like in lock with, can they pull this off? Yeah. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, of course they pull it off. This is only episode 6. We got, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling my mind all these things to calm me down. And yet I'm still a nervous wreck when your hands bleeding. Lonnie's like, I'm out of here. And then you have Mon Mothma and Krennic going back and forth. So that's another layer of tension going on there. It was really fun to watch, just all those dynamics happening in that room. And then for them to pull it off. And I love the little quip at the end where Kleya and Luthen are leaving, and they're like, we should have killed Krennic while we were up there. I'm like, man, should you have ever done that? So
I was laughing.
It was great. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was almost like it was Mission Impossible-esque what was going on there, right? They call that tight sphincter time, because I when I was watching it, I sat up on my couch and I was like, what, how is Kleya gonna get found out? How does Luthen get out of this? And all of and even Lonnie, the actor playing Lonnie, I mean, his utter terror that he is going to get found out by Orson Krennic of all people at a gallery like this, and get roped into being cover for her, and then having to memorize everything she is telling him about the story of this thing in case Orson asks questions. All of it brought up. And then, as you said, Frank, so well, Mon Mothma and Krennic going at it ups the stakes of the tension throughout this whole thing. So yeah, I thought the way it was done was just fantastic. And also the way they advanced Mon Mothma being one of the only voices that is trying to rally people to fight against the Empire. We know that she delivers this speech. We know that she becomes a leader in the rebellion. So we're seeing, not only are we seeing how Cassian becomes Cassian by the time we see Rogue One, we're also seeing how Mon Mothma becomes Mon Mothma. It is not a ready-made, you didn't add water and Mon Mothma just sprouted out of a bag. She had to build to be this person, right? We don't see the daughter or her husband much in these 3 episodes, only at the gala, right? So we see the beginning. She is starting to separate from things. Her daughter pretty much, ostracized her in the last 3 episodes. So you're seeing her slowly moving in a particular direction and having to, because she believes in what she believes in. And so she's going to take the chance to fight back and have the audacity to go toe-to-toe with Krennic in a public place about all these things, So it's a fascinating thing. And then having Kleya finally yank that out. And of course it had to get stuck. Of course it had to be an issue. And so all of that adds to it. And you're right to bring it up, how they walk out with that little quip, Kevin. So yeah, just good stuff overall here with how they stay.
There was, I think, was it in this end of the episode where Perrin and Mon Mothma were in the speeder, and Perrin's commenting on, like, there's like 80 new senators. And I'm like, that just goes, I think that's just to point out of, like, look at this turnover in the Senate, because these are probably senators that are going to kiss the ring. And they're just going to let you go. So you're seeing all this influx of
Right.
of new senators that are not going to side with Mon Mothma,
Right,
and it's becoming increasingly more difficult to get anything done in terms of the right side of history, if you will.
Well, where have I seen that? Where new people are coming into a Congress and having to kiss the ring of the person that got him there and refuse to go against them. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Benjamin Bratt thing. And I don't want to spoil anything, but no, it's not the last we see of him as Bail Organa. And I don't think they would have recast it if they didn't want to do more with the character.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about that. But I think, look, at least they recast it with a Latino. I think in times past, they might not have gone that way.
Who do they get?
Did you see Star Trek in the Dark? Well, no, I'm just saying. Did you see Star Trek Into Darkness?
Vin Diesel guy.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Cumberbatch. So I just like they went this route. And look, both of those guys radiate that kind of energy. And for me as a Latino, growing up with both of them, they also represent like representation for us at times when we weren't getting that many roles. So I think Benjamin spiritually taking the place of Jimmy makes sense for me personally. I understand if some people might have an issue with it, though, because of connections and congruity and all of that, which is fair to bring up there.
Miscongeniality.
Yeah, as well.
Miscongruity. Never mind.
Yeah, I know you tried. I appreciate that.
Consistency.
You want a date?
Oh my gosh!
It's miscongeniality.
Let's deal with this, Frank. Vel and Cinta.
Man,
the next couple. This is just heartbreaking about what happens to
Sam, dude.
To Cinta. I mean, just a random blaster shot, but we see them coming together. We see them repairing their relationship from the fracture from the first season, and we see them even sharing a beautiful kiss. They're expressing their affection and love for each other. And I don't see too many people getting upset about this gay portrayal, this lesbian portrayal in Star Wars out in the ether, because it's done so well here and organically and naturally. And her speech, oh my God, Faye Marzin's speech as Kleya to that young rebel after he's accidentally killed her, because that other rebel who had been arguing in the secret room there, all of that by accident kills Cinta. Her comments to him are incredible, Kleya. Her death will resonate. You will carry this with you for the rest of your life.
Like
what did you think?
Oh.
Yeah, what do you think of how they handled all this? And Luthen going behind Cassian's back to get them to do this heist.
Yeah, to see Vel and then Cinta, I was like, oh boy, this is, it's the Aldani team up, part 2.
You're right.
And so they're gonna do what needs to be done. Especially Cinta, she's as hardcore for the cause as anybody, and
clearly
we got to see, oh yeah, and then a year later, she talks about she got hurt, she had an accident, and they kind of have a reconnection there, which kind of typical storytelling kind of foreshadows usually something not great follows something like that. Very rarely does it come out the other way on the light side.
It's the equivalent of before a battle showing like, oh, this is my love at home, and they show
exactly. We're gonna get married as soon as I get home, have 3 kids, and all of a sudden, a random mortar goes off, and you're like, damn. and which is when you see Vel really have this take on this leadership role that I guess she feels that this sect of the resistance fails to have, in terms of you need to follow orders, you need to do things this way in order to succeed. And because they've been in this fight for quite a number of years at this point, and so they have all this experience that they're trying to bestow upon this front, even though I think at this point Luthen, he alludes to it, he's like, we need to have the Ghormans. We need to have them in the fight. Can you imagine this place of all places, what it could do for our cause? So they could either succeed or not succeed on this mission. It doesn't matter to me, really, because I need to get them in the fight, because it would serve what I believe the best for the cause going forward, and to grow the cause, rather. And so you put these two characters in a situation where you want them to succeed, but ultimately it doesn't matter to Luthen. And then you have an errant blaster bolt hit Cinta, and
he wasn't even supposed to have his weapon. And
exactly. In that speech, she was like, don't bring any blasters. Only me and Vel or me and Cinta are gonna only want to have blasters. You do what you're told. and we can walk away from this thing. And so when this guy has that scuffle, and you're like, okay, they're both fine, all right. And then again, it's really good editing and directing of just. I didn't even think about Cinta. I didn't even think about her because they have built her up, honestly, in a way that she's almost, like a super soldier in a way. She can do anything. And then, reveal that she's the one that got hit. And you're right. Vel's speech to that guy was, this might be, I think, in my opinion, one of the better written episodes of the entire series thus far.
Yeah.
Because you have this speech, there's another speech with obviously with Saw, and just all the other writing it was a tremendously written episode. I really loved it. I think it's probably my favorite so far of the entire series. But that speech was very haunting, and you can tell just like, I think her not like attacking him in any way demonstrates the immense amount of pain that she has with this loss. And she was listing all the qualities that made Cinta, and kind of like basically having like a eulogy, because there's no ceremonial type of way to say goodbye to people that you've lost in a revolution, in a war, in these scenarios. And the same thing happened with Brasso. It was just, we gotta go. And so it's so heartbreaking, and deaths like these in these situations can be so random and unexplainable. I thought they did a really good job of displaying that, and it shouldn't have happened, but it did. It doesn't make sense, but we have to move on.
Yeah, I also think having Vel be the one who has to deliver this speech, I thought was really powerful, because we do know how Vel was in last season, right? And this is what, 2 or 3 years ago, and not in terms of time of seasons. I mean, in the show, chronologically, 2 or 3 years ago, and we see her like get mad at Luthen and getting all pouty and upset that Cassian is there. This is a different woman now. Just as Cassian has matured and changed and seen some shit, Vel has certainly seen some shit out there in this rebellion and deaths and all of that. And so I think 3 years ago, she attacks this guy and berates him and maybe beats him up. But if Vel now understands, as a rebel, people are going to die. People you love are going to die. And it was her turn. So it's her turn to give back to the rebellion by schooling this young kid who he himself will lose people or see people getting lost as part of the rebellion. And so she is the weathered older rebel now, giving this beautiful, as you said, Frank, eulogy to her. What did you think about the storyline with them and they're coming together, and then what it leads to at the end and the heist?
Yeah, you don't get to cry. Like, you look at me, like, you face what you did. Like, at first I thought she was going to be like, be all nice and be like, it's okay. Like, it's like, no, dude. Like, it is brutal. And it is something that he needed to hear, and it's going to form him. And I wonder if it will tie in, if something happens during the massacre sequence, if he has a bigger part to play, Sam. But yeah, that was brutal, and that's friendly fire. It happens all the time. I mean, in war, and it's unfortunate, but it's another piece of reality that kind of snuck its way into this Star Wars tale, which I like. And Val losing Cinta and them getting their chance to have that reconciliation before she dies is nice. And it's no death scene. It's no final breaths in her arm. It's like she came up to the body and the body's already dead. It's the same with Brasso. Remember? Same thing that you talked about last week, Rocha. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I mean, I think the deaths are going to keep coming. I mean, this is going to be brutal. There's a lot of the characters in Rogue One. So we're going to brace ourselves. We got to sit down and get ready for it.
Yeah, I can't speculate.
Tell me, Rogan.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Exactly.
Can you tell me, as one side thing, just before we get into, I'm sure what we're going to talk about next is the Saw Gerrera stuff.
Yes, that's the last thing. Yeah.
And maybe this is too spoilerly, but I was just thinking about it. Andor's sister, was that just a device in season 1 to kick off his adventure, much like, Luke wanting to go off to get power converters in the first, is his sister ever mentioned? I guess you're not allowed
because
to say.
Bix does bring you like, I'm not her sister, and I'm like, why are we still talking?
Yeah,
about
like,
like not that it's valid. I'm just wondering, like,
yeah, I remember last season I used to talk about like, oh, he's gonna end up finding out his sister is like a high-ranking Imperial or something like that. I was getting too cute with it. Is his sister factoring in?
I'm not
or are you not allowed to answer it?
I am not going to say a word about any of that. What's wrong with you? You can't even ask me about that. What are you, crazy?
It's your fault for watching this ahead of time. We can't even talk about it.
Shocking. She's actually Snoke.
She's Snoke. She's Snoke.
She's Snoke the whole time.
So, Lori.
Sister, no. So, Kevin, as you guessed, let's move on to this and get your thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, we have such an incredible time with Wilmon and Saw Gerrera. And listen, Wilmon, low-key, his storyline is super interesting in how they're developing it. If you remember what he endured in season 1, his father being tortured and killed and hung, and then what he experienced in the first 3 episodes of this season, and now being roped into this situation where he's having to teach one of Saw Gerrera's people about how to use this weapon that they've taken off the Ghormans here, and then or the Empire, and then Saw kills the guy he just trained because he says he's a traitor, and then he takes him out to this area to use the weapon and says that we had to get used to these fumes, and I was down in this pit working in this slave colony or whatever he says, working in this prison colony.
Jungle, KOTOR reference.
Yeah, exactly. All of that. And then makes him take it off and sniff the fumes, which I think is amazing. So what do you think of this stuff with Saw, who is, let me be honest with you all, Saw is my spirit animal in this entire series. That is who I would be if I would be a rebel. But go ahead.
We're the Rido, kid. We're the Rido. We're the fuel. I mean, this is the episode, that's the end of the second of there's 3. Episode 5. I kind of sensed that he knew Pluty was a spy when Pluty's the guy he was training.
Yes,
right? Like, no, I really need to know the one sequence. It's like, no, you should learn all the possible sequences for this, for this Rhydonium or whatever. This fuel that's highly combustible, just like people. I love that it was on Dakar. A couple of Easter eggs on Dakar. First of all, in comics, they mention in the comics of Rise of Skywalker, Dakar is mentioned like, oh, it was an old base for early rebellion operations. So it's cool that they have that play into it. Yeah. You got to see Morag, Benthic, and Two Tubes again, which is like Rogue One and Solo Star Wars story connections. And then they're roasting the dog from Massive, which are those Tatooine dogs from The Mandalorian and episode 2 with Anakin and the Tusken Enclave or whatever. So you see that. I thought that was really cool. As far as the storyline goes, yeah, like it just shows you how quickly like Saw's like, yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of him. He saw our faces. Even and Pluty is even like kind of defending him, like, well, no, like he wants to fight. He like bring him along, you know what I mean? But it just shows that like, and it reminds me of the line that Andor says in Rogue One, where it's like we have all done things bad that we're not proud of, or whatever he says for the rebellion. And I think we're seeing that. And I think Saw, he's an extremist, and you're seeing the origins of like what he's addicted. And I wonder, that's probably no wonder why he has that asthma problem, right? In Rogue One, he was addicted to it. So, but that scene and that speech, which I have here, which before we wrap, I have a little game for you guys. Okay. That speech, like it got me the goosebumps. I'm like the Rock over here slapping the floor. I was just like so moved by it. And it's like, and the music rising. Shout out to the composer who wrote, I think you know the exact name of the composer. Yeah. They had changed it, but slowly building this
Brandon Roberts.
Yeah. And I wanted to get some clarification on like, so like the Rhydonium, they're pulling that fuel from it and they're going to use it later, right, for an attack. And so, but to take in those fumes and how it burns. And when he finally lets, and it's like, again, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. When Wilmon takes the mask off and he's screaming, and while he's screaming, he's like, "That's free," and then Saw saying, "That's freedom calling." Like those are two people that are like, "You're not with Luthen, you're here, you're fighting," and like, and it's that speech is just so good. Yeah, I was just really moved by it. It was cool to see, like I said, Dakar. So
yeah. What he says is, where is it? He says, revolution is not for the sane, boy, given that they will all be dead before a new republic is established. Yeah. Each of them that are Luthen and Saw understand their roles in this. Cassian is slowly starting to understand his role in this. Mon Mothma is slowly starting to have the role she's going to play revealed to her. It's so interesting. What do you think about the And Wilmon is going to have a role to play. Obviously, clearly, it's the way they're building it up. So, what do you think of this back and forth and these sequences here with Saw and Wilmon leading to that moment where they're screaming their heads off, taking in toxic fumes?
Saw is one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars. I never know which way this guy is pointed. It's always wishy-washy. And I guess the Rhydonium has something to do with it.
Yeah, probably.
Like, man has been huffing Rhydonium on the side, and he's getting all these, visions, delusions, what have you, and he's leading a bunch of people, with starships and weapons and all that. So, and also just fueled by his hate for the Empire, and probably again, still mourning his sister.
Yes,
Tila, who got a shout out kind of when he was saying
which is a weird way. I was like, man, this dude he's pretty messed up. He's thinking of the Rhydonium as like a sister, someone that he lost, someone that brings him comfort, or like sets him straight almost, even though obviously the Rhydonium doesn't do that. The whole the sequence thing with the contraption and Saw's, or the traitor, which I'm not even sure if he is a traitor.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Unless you're thinking Two Tubes or whatever planted that listing.
Yeah, 100%.
I think 100% he was.
Kevin, they said it in their episode earlier. Accidents happen. Like, don't make it look however they wanted to make it look.
Right.
So you can't trust 100% what you saw there. I think Wilmon breathing in the Rhydonium fumes was kind of like a baptism into like Saw's line of thinking. And because Wilmon is someone who wants to fight. He wants to fight. You saw that on Ferrix after his dad was killed. This dude wanted nothing more to take down the Empire, and he was going to do it by himself if need be. He threw the first grenade to launch that whole uprising on Ferrix, and now he's been on the run, and he's still fighting any way that he can. And now he's in this situation where he's supposed to be like a teacher, and I think Wilmon is someone who still carries so much. He won't even talk about his dad at all. Like, who taught you? It's clearly his dad, but he's not gonna say, because he doesn't. It hurts him too much still.
It's private,
I think.
Yeah.
And then it's private, yeah, absolutely. And so I think Wilmon's finally like, okay, you know what? First of all, hell of a speech. I mean, that thing was incredible.
Yeah.
We're the friction in the air, or something like that one line. I was like, oh my good.
Part of my game, but so we'll get to the speech.
Okay, sorry, I don't want to step on your game pieces, Kevin. Sorry. But seeing Wilmon now take this step, which veers away from the path that Cassian and Bix are on, I think, in terms of him being a little bit more radical in his approach, which is kind of a little more in Luthen's lane than it is in Cassian and Bix, at least my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I love it. And some of the coverage that I've enjoyed reading about Andor is the Vulture coverage. I think Vulture is doing an excellent job breaking down. There are really multiple articles about this show because it is veering into stuff that we know from reality and stuff that we've had in our world. And some of these characters have been influenced in how they're being fleshed out by some of the stuff we've experienced in our world. And in one of their articles that's titled, I Am High on Saw Gerrera's Supply, here's a quote from the article. Saw is its armed France fan and a prism for critical theory as seen through a Kyber crystal. So much of Saw is informed by the anti-colonialist philosophers' observations about the psychological toll of living under imperialism in the 1961 book, The Wretched of the Earth, in which Fanon wrote about, quote, the muscles of the colonized are always tensed, and argued that, quote, decolonization is truly the creation of new men. And so him ripping off the mask and making Wilmon breathe in the fumes is essentially creating a new man who is now muscular and strong enough to deal with the fumes. Because what have we seen from Wilmon? Even though he wants to fight and rebel, he's also a scared little boy sometimes, hiding his relationship with that blonde girl on
Mina Powell.
Mina Powell, all of that. And then later even here, he's like nervously trying to teach the guy because he's afraid Saul's going to kill him. And it isn't until they go toe to toe here in this speech, which by the way is, I think, the third best speech here with Luthen's speech and then with Mav's speech from last season.
Well, there goes my game.
I'm
I
just
wanted
saying,
to read both the speeches, and you guys decide what's the. But now we know the order.
oh, well, of course, we're well. I mean, but it's
Great
amazing.
game, Kevin. I love playing it.
I love the game.
We're running late on this.
We are. We're way over an hour, and I want us to wrap up soon. But I think it's amazing to see that those influences in the writing. And Bo Wilmon is the writer of of these episodes, and what you mentioned, Frank, as well, enjoying the writing. This is the stuff that, for me as a history buff, for me as a person who knows a lot of stuff outside of Star Wars, this is the stuff that excites me about Andor and how they have the guts to veer this close to the real world that we live in and have lived in for decades. Across the countries have dealt with across the world for decades. So it's amazing stuff. All right, go ahead, Kevin. Your game as we wrap up.
The game. We don't need to do it anymore. It's fine. I'm just going to ask what you guys thought, and I was going to read both speeches, but
you can't read both speeches. We don't have another hour.
Well, I was going to read like the highlights, and then you guys. It's fine. I do want to ask Frank how your background keeps animating. I see the ships flying over Coruscant. Is that a YouTube video on loop, or like how are you doing that?
Yeah, it's a video I found on YouTube.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Nice.
There's actually music to it, but it's obviously not playing. So
right.
Of course. Yeah, that's good. No, I mean, I had both. I wanted to read, and it's fine. I wanted to. You can't sacrifice everything.
You just want to talk raspy. Is what
I was going to say, Kevin, you can't have a whole opening monologue and then an ending monologue. That's not how the show works, for God's sake.
All right, I'm allowed one per show, I guess.
Right, but rank. I would say this. Here's your game.
Yeah, I wanted to rank the three.
Okay, go ahead. What's your ranking of them?
Man, I think Saw might have hit the number one spot for me.
Wow.
Ooh.
I think I go Saw. I think I go Luthen from what do I sacrifice everything?
Yeah.
And I think I go Maeve the third. I mean, that speech was so powerful, and I understand. Marva, not Maeve. Marva. Maeve is from Maeve is from fucking The Boys, I think.
Yeah, Maeve is from The Boys.
Marva's speech, on Ferrex. So I think I go. So maybe it's just because it's recency bias right now. I mean, that Luthen speech is so great. I saw in an interview he said he didn't want to mess that up, so he actually had a listening device in his ear, which ruined the speech for me now, because when you watch it, there's almost it's almost like you hear the.
Will also did have a stroke, Kevin. So how does that make you feel now?
Yeah,
I understand. No question.
Maybe it counters it a little bit for you, a little bit maybe.
Look, I mean, some of the line that I just wanted to point to, the two things. It's he says, Saw says, we'll all be dead before the Republic is back, right? And then you have Luthen say the same thing. Basically, he says, I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see. So I just like to point out, like, how close in reality those two speeches are. So I don't know. What's your order, Frank? Rocha, you said your order is Luthen.
No.
Marva,
Luthen is third. My order is Marva, then Saw Gerrera's speech, then Luthen. I don't.
Oh wow. Okay.
I don't like that speech as much as other people do, because I don't like Luthen. Luthen is a person who will sacrifice everybody to make sure they win, but it may not be the right sacrifice, but he's still willing to do it. And so I don't like that speech, because it's a validation how everyone is expendable but him. It's a bit of a self-serving, convenient speech on his side. But I do respect people who like the speech. It's just, for me personally, Marva's speech is something I've been listening to a lot lately as I get disenchanted or dispirited at sometimes. And when I see what's going on, I have to play it. I have to listen to it. And so, and Saw's might now be a speech I play in companion, because, as I said, he's my spirit animal. That's who I would be if I was in a rebellion, for God's sake.
You'd be addicted to.
I would also throw in there. I would also throw in Nemec's voiceovers that Cassian was hearing from the first season. Like, that's a lot of pointent stuff in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you would kind of have to, put
Who's
it all together.
Rebellions are built on hope in this series. Someone's got to say rebellions are built on hope. But Frank, what's your order? And then also for the fans, comment down below. What's your order between Marva? Could be 2 ML. Between Marva, Saw, and Luthen, and Maeve from The Boys. You can put her. And also, Nico
Nemec.
I do really love Marva's speech, and for like the same reasons you've said, John. Sometimes I just need to, and even Nemec's too, really, like, just hearing those words, like, really can kind of calm me down in a sense, but I would put Marv as number one. I think I'm a little too enamored with the delivery of Luthen's speech to like not put it second, because I think just the way it's delivered, on top of the words obviously as well, but the way it's delivered and how he conveys everything that he's saying is super powerful to me.
Very well,
and Saw, his speech is also a rah-rah type of speech, but Saw just happens to speak a certain way that doesn't resonate with me as much as Luthen's, raspy does, and that's just that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, but this show, when they decide to go in monologue mode, strap in, because you're gonna get a gem, and they delivered a couple in that fifth episode.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Any final words here as we wrap up? Kevin, I go to you first. Any final words? Not a monologue. Any final words here as we're wrapping up? Because we're already an hour and 21 minutes into this show.
Yeah, I look forward to what happens next, to be honest. I think it's going to be...
speculate what happened next?
Yeah, well, my speculation is I think that the Ghorman Massacre is going to be the next 3-episode arc, which then really makes me curious for what the final 3 will be. Right, we have two more arcs, 2 more years to cover. Unless they're going to stretch it out, and the Ghorman Massacre is in the final 3, but I feel like it won't be. I feel like the final 3 will be more espionage and like how we're going to get these Death Star plans discovered by our company. So I think all things come to pass the next arc, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay,
and I'm highly entertained by these 3 episodes. I think it's just like I said, even last week, like when I wasn't that stoked on the premiere, like I knew that it was just going to keep getting better and better for me. And sometimes the premiere has to set up a lot of things and set the table, pilot episodes and all that. So yeah, Frank,
your final words.
Yeah, this stretch, this arc, really kind of the anti pew pew boom boom type of Star Wars fans would be looking for, because there really is none of that until the very end, and it's over in like a minute. Also, I just kind of realized a lot of drug use in Andor. Like season 1, when Dedra is at the ISB and they're like going through the files, popping pills, just to stay up to go through the files. And obviously you have Bix here, and you got Sauce huffing gas. It's like, it's dark out there for rebellions and empires, man. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, I don't know. I'm going to brace myself for the Ghorman Massacre. They've been building this for the past 2 arcs now. Also, just when between like this show and Last of Us, just a lot of characters I like that are going to die like in the next month. It's going to suck.
I feel the same with my rewatch of Lost, man. Poor Shannon, poor Boone. Rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Season 3. I remember that. Here's what I'll say. I loved rewatching them again. These are the 3 most dense episodes, but they're also the episodes that solidify what this show is all about and what it's trying to show you, and these characters and their roles they're playing in this rebellion at this time in history. And I think they nailed it. Like all across the board, I think they nailed it. The next 3 is my favorite arc for sure of the entire season.
Is your favorite episode of all Star Wars media in the next week?
By far. Yes.
Of any television.
All I'll tell you is this. The way they've been building it up, the payoff is incredible. It's incredible. So
oh no.
I know. And yeah, I definitely recommend having
deader than disco.
I definitely recommend having tissues or paper towels, whatever you need, because it is absolutely amazing. And there are twists and turns coming up in the next 3 episodes, and some shocking moments that nobody will see coming. And I think
I'm sweating over here, John.
Yeah, I mean,
good news. Rocha is once again going to stream the DVDs on his Twitter page at midnight tonight. So
exactly.
I'm just kidding, Disney. Don't shut us down.
Yeah, exactly. Please don't. But I think people will enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing what the discourse is afterwards. And if people agree, just because I liked it doesn't mean everyone else will, and doesn't mean I'm right. But we'll see. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review. Sorry, guys, we went way longer than we usually do, but clearly it's because there's a lot to talk about in these 3 episodes. We hope you enjoyed our conversation, our spoiler review. Of course, we miss Laura Kelly here, but we had a really great replacement for this particular episode. We can't thank Frank Janisch enough for taking the time to hang out with us, especially because we went so super long. Frank, please, I don't know what you do on social media-wise. I don't know what you do right now, but please plug anything or let people know whatever you got going on so they can follow you and hear more of your thing.
Not too much, Twitter, Instagram, FrankieJ29. I do edit on a podcast called Athletics Check with Johnny Stanton IV. It's a mix between being a nerd and being into sports, and he kind of has conversations with people in those worlds and kind of brings out the other side you may not necessarily know about them. It's a good conversational podcast, so you go ahead and check it out. Athletics Check. Check it out.
Okay, there you go. Kevin Smets, another fun show with you, my man. Please let people know where they can find you, everything got going on here in 2025.
Still trying to figure out a channel name. I thought Star Wars Squad was brilliant until I realized that when you search it, everybody thinks you're looking for Star Wars Squadron. So whereas before Smash City Studios would be the top link if you're looking for it, I can't say look up Star Wars Squad. You won't find it. So you're gonna have to start. If you want to find us on YouTube, just type in Star Wars Squad KOTOR, and then you'll get our link. Probably going to have another name change. I don't know what it's going to be. Yeah, we have our TV spot releasing next week with the booming, beautiful voice of Mr. John Rocha, and that will be Monday. I'm trying to release it Monday because Tuesday is going to be Andor Day, and everybody's going to be talking about it for the next week. So I think Monday is going to be the sweet spot to release that. So appreciate you guys following along for the KOTOR stuff, and appreciate the fans. I'm looking forward to everybody's rankings of the speeches in the comments below. And like Rocha always says, keep it civil. And I will say to Rocha, well, we'll wait. Rocha, you have some redeeming to do at the end of this episode, but you know.
Yes, I do. But first, please remember to subscribe to the channel down below. You know, we're just about to cross 38,000 subscribers, step by step, piece by piece, building on this channel. Help us get to 50,000, then to 100,000 at some point. We would love it. Please subscribe down below, hit that bell button, leave your comments, as Kevin said. We want to hear from all of you on all this stuff. Like Kevin said, keep it civil or I will eliminate it. It's just how I work nowadays. And the other thing is, this is really important. Please make sure you're watching all the stuff that we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel. You know, I'm always very proud of every show we do. And I think we have great co-hosts like Kevin, like Frank, who come on to guest or consistently come on every week to talk about this stuff. And I hope you enjoy that and patronize all of their stuff as well. Follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. And always remember, your focus determines your reality.
You got it.
There you go. We'll see you next time for another brand new episode of the Jedi.
Do I sacrifice everything?
Bring in the fumes.